Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First and foremost, I hope and wish that your family, friends, and colleagues have been safe from COVID, and I pray that all of us get out of this crisis safely and quickly. There's a big unpredictability and uncertainty about what will happen tomorrow. And surprisingly, the world is united in its stand on dealing with COVID, which is irrational and with utter disdain towards self-preservation and well-being of the society. Lockdowns are lifted by the regulators and the masses start celebrating, and what happens after that, well, you all know it. The scariest news article that I have read is from MIT on the 9th of July. It said India will have 2.87 lakh COVID cases a day by winter 21 if there are no remedies found before that. In these challenging times, this quarter has been quite unique. Companies who did their business continuity plans well have weathered the storm so far, and with what panache. Numbers speak for themselves. For cement industry, demand has been buoyant since late April when the industry started operations. Industry witnessed demand pick up in East, Central, North, Tamil Nadu and Kerala markets, while weak demand persisted in Western India, Andhra, Telangana and Karnataka markets. Cement consumption has found its way into the rural and retail markets since the heat of pandemic was felt much more in the urban markets at that point in time. Rural markets, we believe, will continue to thrive in future months as well. Our retail share in overall sales for the quarter has increased to an all-time high at about 78%. Odisha is picking up development activities as part of the typhoon rehabilitation program. West Bengal, with elections approaching, will keep the momentum on project execution and thus consuming cement. We are also seeing large projects unfolding in the northern markets. Road segment is gradually improving. It has gone up 3x from April, but it's not at its peak. Fingers crossed that things could stabilize post-Diwali with return of migrant labor. Talking about UltraTech, we recorded an effective degrowth of only 22%, which in current COVID times we are not so unhappy about. The restated numbers for the period up to 1st October 29 will reflect a higher degrowth. This is purely on account of the appointed date of merger of Century Cement being fixed as 20th May 2018 compared to the effective date of takeover being 1st October 2019. Clearly reflecting the strong equity of our brand and its market potential, the strength that we derive from a network of more than 95,000 channel partners. Yes, that is what differentiates men versus boys. Cement prices remain resilient during the quarter before witnessing the seasonal impact during the end of the month of June, but entered the monsoon with held high on prices. Average prices increased about 7% over March quarter. As was expected, most of the expansion plans across the industry are moving cautiously. We have not seen any additional capacity going on stream this quarter across the industry. As for UltraTech, work on our 1.2 million ton brownfield expansion in Bihar and West Bengal is going on. There will be delays. There are challenges in terms of labor availability and material supplies. We are now targeting to commission these plants somewhere in the early next financial year. We also expect to commission the 2.3 million ton Dalla super clinker plant in Uttar Pradesh in the next fiscal year. I'm glad to tell you that we are on track in getting approvals from the government. Total cash flow on capex this year will not be more than 1,500 crores. Bulk of the investment is towards return-based capex projects, which includes 66 megawatt of WHRS projects spread across 7 plant locations, railway sidings. There are ongoing 1.2 million ton brownfield expansion, phase 2 of the Bara grinding unit, Bicharpur coal block. There is a bulk packaging terminal that we are doing near Mumbai, ready-mix concrete plants, and other normal maintenance and modernization capex. I have mentioned in the past about our endeavor to dispose of non-core assets, and to that effect, we have concluded our transaction to sell the 92.5% share in a cement subsidiary. We held these assets in our books as assets held for disposal, and hence its P&L or capacity has not been part of our operating performance. The sale proceeds, which we expect to be received in August, will help reduce the net debt of the company further. We are working on other non-core assets, but at this moment, I don't have anything concrete to tell you. Cash flow management is a must to talk about. It has been a hallmark of our company. We have shrunk our working capital by over 600 crores this quarter. This excludes the one-time provision that we have had to make for prior period adjustments. We will continue to maintain a tight hand on our overall cash flows. However, don't expect this reduction to repeat in future months. Sustainability. UltraTech joins the growing list of companies adopting science-based target initiatives, what is called SBTi, as part of its climate commitment. We are committed to build our business in line with below 2-degree world under the Paris Agreement. To talk a little more about sustainability, we have achieved 19.14% reduction in CO2 emission levels in FY20 over the base of 2006. Water positive score is increased 2.8x in FY20, and we are targeting to reach about 4x this year or early next year. All of you are watching the fuel costs very closely. Cement industry from India went berserk booking coal and petcoke, which has caused a run-up in the spot prices of fuel. We are not expecting any further benefit in terms of reduction in fuel costs. The costs seem to have plateaued for now. What we continue to work on is improving our internal efficiency on a sustainable basis. Added to that, our green power share in total power mix base for the quarter has increased to 14% from 12% last quarter. Diesel prices have been continuously increasing since May 20. Average all India June end prices are higher over 15% as compared to the prices in the beginning of April. However, the average for the year remained more or less at the same level as March quarter. Hence, we did not have any adverse impact on logistics cost during this quarter. But the increased diesel prices will have an impact for the industry in the coming periods. Overheads control is another important aspect which I should talk to you about. As we had mentioned in the last quarter, the efforts on cost reduction has gone full throttle, and it is evident in the numbers for Q1. It enhances our confidence on the ability to generate a 10% reduction in overheads over the last year for sure. This quarter, the total fixed costs were down 21% over the previous year, reducing the impact on our P&L of lower capacity utilization. Century Assets, the integration efforts have continued in spite of the slowdown this quarter. Capacity utilization has been robust. We have also touched about 70% plus in phases when lockdowns were getting lifted. EBITDA per ton profile is almost reaching 1,000 rupee mark. We have reduced our net debt further by about 2,200 crores this quarter to 12,950 crores in India. We expect to receive the fund from sale of China unit in this quarter, which will help reduce our leverage further. In addition to that, we have a loan of 1,700 crores in our overseas company at a cost of about 1.5%. Our Indian net debt to EBITDA on the basis of 12 months performance is at 1.44x as compared to 1.55x previous quarter. Let me just clarify on the one-time expense that we have had, and it happens only in India. State governments give incentives to invest in their state and then try and muscle their way out of their commitments. This quarter, we have recorded an exceptional expense of 157 crore. To give you the history, VAT incentive given in the year 2006 or 2007 has been reversed with interest. Unfortunately, we went up to the Supreme Court, but unfortunately, Supreme Court also ruled in favor of the state. We are moving a review petition, but making a full provision for this liability. It does not impact in any way the company's operating performance, where we have delivered a 28% of operating EBITDA margin and an EBITDA per ton of 1,453. The impact of this reversal will not be there in future quarters because the incentive which was given is no longer available. It has already been exhausted. In the end, let's just discuss briefly about what lies ahead. Well, your guess is as good as mine. The crisis brought about by this pandemic is far from over. And now the local lockdowns have thrown in an additional layer of uncertainty. On the positive side, rural markets have been good so far. Monsoons have been also equally good. In most parts of the country, Kharif crop has been favorable, sowing was much higher, which will mean that the rural cash flows will continue to stay strong. And in a bid to revive the economy, government will fast-track its spending on infrastructure. Most of the infrastructure projects are now operational, but operating at a much lower capacity due to labor availability issues. Keeping our fingers crossed, and in the end, I take this opportunity of thanking you for joining us today. Stay safe, stay blessed. Thank you. Over to you for questions.
Sure, so thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 on the touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and 2. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. All participants are requested to limit their question to 2 per participant. If time permits, we will take the follow-up question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. The first question is from the line of Bhumika Nair from IDFC. Please go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, sir, and congratulations on a great set of numbers with strong deleveraging that we've witnessed. Sir, I just wanted to understand the July volume trend and the market trend a little better. In your sense and interaction, how are you seeing the on-ground demand with monsoon setting in and the pent-up demand being largely exhausted? Is the demand trend still continuing to remain healthy, or are you seeing, rural coming off? If you can give some more color on, by when do you expect institutional demand coming back? That's question number 1. And on, debt, we've definitely seen a very strong deleveraging in the past 9 months to a year. A lot of it has also been a lot of working capital driven. So is that now behind it, and incrementally the debt leveraging will be more operational, and, what kind of non-core asset sale can further help in terms of the entire deleveraging?
I'll take the second question first, Bhumika. And before that, thank you for the compliments for our numbers. Working capital release, yes, we have squeezed it tight to the bone, and as I mentioned in my commentary, don't expect further release in working capital. That's the max I think we can do. We might want to pump in some more working capital depending upon how the markets shape up. On the non-core assets, there is a unit in Dubai and loan outstanding to this company in Europe, which is a non-cement company called 3V Fiberglass. Okay. So our intent is to downsell the loan and realize whatever we can realize from that loan. Now, the fiberglass industry, whatever I have understood, that particular unit caters to automobile sector and windmills. Both the markets are down, both the sectors are down, and COVID is also there. So it's we have not been able to find buyers as of now. Dubai unit is also not able to find investors to buy the asset. We will try for some more time. Otherwise, maybe for this quarter we will try, and otherwise integrate it and start operating it as part of our own capacity. So that's as far as Dubai asset is concerned, and I think we can synergize because there are some advantages that we see in that Dubai unit. But we will wait for this quarter before we take a final call. On July, today if you see the rain clouds in Mumbai, it's very heavy rains. Last week, it was totally dry.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that it would be raining here so badly today. The uncertainty is very high. Now, what is happening is we started off July all right, continuing the momentum that we got from June.
Mm-hmm.
If that gives sense. But as we are progressing, it's a normal monsoon slowdown that would take place. Last year, July-September period, we were operating when there was no COVID and normal monsoons. We were operating at about 60% capacity utilization. So monsoon is there to, is a weak period in any case for cement industry. The challenge that we are facing, the industry is facing, is the local lockdowns. That becomes a problem because a project which is going on in, let's say, Kolkata or Bangalore, and suddenly, the state government puts a lockdown, no movement allowed. It kind of puts a very urgent brake on the sales. This unpredictability is not in your hands, nor in my hands. Otherwise, if this unpredictability was not there, things are doing fine.
Okay. So broadly, would we still at 60% utilization? As you said, that is what we were last year. Would it be at similar utilization? Would we be lower or higher?
That would be a forward-looking number. I don't want to comment on that, and I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. Because tomorrow, if there's a major lockdown, we are already shooting up to 50,000 cases a day in India. If there's a major lockdown happening, then things will go haywire.
Sure. And on pricing, sir, versus average of 1Q21, are they largely holding on, or are we seeing a correction?
Yeah, monsoon correction, 4 to 5% correction is normal.
I wish you all the best. I'll come back in the queue. I have more questions. I'll come back. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Vivek Maheshwari from Jefferies. Please go ahead.
Hi, good evening, Atul sir.
Good evening, sir.
Getting into this, this quarter, June quarter, there was, whatever interaction I had with the industry, the outlook was looking far bleaker than what the outcome has been. Let's say in your case, the decline is arrested to 22%, right, in terms of volumes. Now, can you just elaborate on, I understand the rural and the retail bit which helped, but who is the end user, or, where is the cement exactly, going in your assessment, and, given that there has been such a huge surprise on the positive side, so to speak?
You can elaborate on that. It's when I said our retail share has gone up 78%. Not only ours, practically everybody else, whatever else have been declared, everybody's retail share would have gone up dramatically. Blended cement shares have gone up dramatically because retail sells only blended. And where this material is going is to the individual home builder in the remote areas. What has happened is migrant labor normally goes back in batches. A family of 7-10 people, few people will go back, few people will stay back in town, urban areas, and they keep on rotating their home visits. This time, everybody has landed back in the remote areas, in their hometowns, and are building their next room, next house, or whatever work had to be done. In the fear, because COVID is playing heavily on everybody's mind, social distancing requirements are playing on the minds, and cost of doing construction is far lower. Land cost is insignificant or not there. It's only the construction cost that one has to incur. So we've seen retail demand, which is what cement industry called IHB, individual home builder demand, drive bulk of the cement consumption and cement demand.
Right.
You do not see anything in metro towns, Mumbai's and Delhi's, Bangalore, etc. I know real estate companies where they started work we got permissions in, I guess, April end. They started getting permissions slightly 15-20 days later. They started work on project sites and had to stop completely. What also happened, the moment the migrant labor got opportunity to move out, there was an exodus of labor. Companies like L&T had mentioned on their call, they were holding back n number of people, 1.5 or 1.6 lakh laborers across all their project sites. But the moment the opportunity was available, people left the sites and went back remote areas to their hometowns. Manrega is not enough. The government paycheck is not enough. So they went on to whatever project work is available in remote areas, which is not a road or a bridge or a station or a metro construction in remote areas, but these are individual houses.
Sure. Two points from here, Atul sir. One is the fact that these workers have moved from urban to rural. Does that worry you from an urban market perspective, given that these projects which they build on here in urban are far more cement intensive compared to, let's say, the rural piece? And the second thing is, when they have built these IHBs, some part of this is pent up from, let's say, April and whatever happened end of March, and the other part could be some advancement from later part of the year. So on the demand side, do you worry, or you think that leave aside what the comment you made about the localized lockdown? Let's assume that if that were to kind of go past, would you think that things will get incrementally better as we move into the over the next during the course of the year?
Yeah, Vivek, so for a split second, let's leave COVID aside, okay?
Right.
And suppose things start moving in a normal manner. The pent-up demand that we talk about, or preponing demand that we talk about, will continue, because it all is linked to rural cash flows. Tractor sales are going up, two-wheeler sales are going up. People will invest in two-wheelers for individual two-wheeler or entry-level four-wheeler for the purpose of social distancing instead of traveling in public transport. Tractor sales are going up, agri incomes are going up. Government has also increased the MSP. So there is a huge amount of support which is going towards improving the rural cash flows. So our sense check, our dipstick tells us that rural demand will continue. There will be these hiccups. Now let me bring COVID into play. There will be these hiccups. There are small towns where I have heard that markets which were open 7 days a week have had to start operating. Smaller towns, very remote towns, which are operating only till afternoon, Saturday, Sunday closed, because there have been some cases. And they don't have as good facilities as whatever level of facility you may say that cities like Mumbai or metro towns have. So if COVID spike keeps happening, there will be blips of slowdown, and then demand will be there. Another positive sign is that people are realizing COVID is not so bad after all, not so difficult, because staying at home and getting cured is also a very good possibility, and that's what people are resorting to. But what it does is, if there's a patient in a family or in a remote area, that family is into a lockdown, there is a social boycott, because of which work suffers. Talking about urban markets, we believe that now, and we are also reading in the newspapers that labor is coming back. And yes, we are seeing labor come back. The big labor comeback will happen only after Diwali, when all the agri work is over. They have to now go back again somewhere around February, March for the April harvest, and then in the monsoons. So November onwards, we will start seeing non-trade demand come back. The institutional projects will start stabilizing with whatever level of project site which was working with 100 people, and if they are an organized real estate player or large contractors, they will continue the project site with social distancing or whatever else they have to do with slightly lesser number of people. Work will continue.
Okay. Thank you very much, Atul sir, for the elaborate explanation.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Nitin Arora from Axis Mutual Fund. Please go ahead.
Hi, sir. Good evening. My first question is more on the core real estate sales. I remembered in the last call, you talked about a proportion, and I'm talking more from a perspective of, let's say, a client like L&T, Shapoorji, more on the real estate side. Has that volume started to pick up, or how do you see that? And as a percentage, I'm talking on a very rough basis. Let's say if we in a normal scenario sells about 80-90 million tons of volumes, I think the hardcore real estate as such would be around 20-30 million tons. Is that the right number to look at it, sir?
I normally look at the urban real estate, if that's what you are alluding to be about 30 to 40. I'll give a wider range, 30 to 50 million tons, not more than that.
Okay.
The urban real estate that you're talking about. And as of now, they are suffering because of labor availability, essentially because of labor availability and local lockdowns if they hit them.
Sharing it. So once, if I understand your view, so if, let's say, tomorrow, I mean, it's difficult to time the timeline when the urban markets really open up in full way, but that's where the existing, the project developers who are still rich on their balance sheet and still not, declining, being our large customers, that pent up will eventually come once this market starts opening up, if they are not taking too much volume right now, or it's an on and off situation. Is that the right way to conclude?
Yes, absolutely. Because the developers, now there is whichever developer has a strong balance sheet can tap into good projects or very good deals, I should say. So this is also helping, and I'm speaking with some real estate experience. This is helping the larger developers consolidate further. This is helping them strike good deals. The landowners or the developers who had bad balance sheets are giving up on projects more rapidly. The deals are more higher available in number. It all depends on how many deals would one want to sign up. Till the uncertainty on this pandemic is not dying down.
Got it. And just last question on the debt reduction part, on a directional side. Given that capital expenditure still remains on the lower side versus what we used to do on an average, even for this year, and I think next year also, if this pandemic is assuming to be continuing for the next 2-3 months, we'll almost reach towards FY22. Directionally, should we look at more? I understand you said that working capital is something which we need to infuse also at some point in time to generate more sales and support dealers and distributors. But directionally, if you look at from a 2 years point of view, given whatever the capex level you have been envisaging, do you see the debt reduction to the tune of about 2,000 to 3,000 crores on a minimum side? Is that the right way to conclude it?
Running towards 1x.
That's helpful.
Is up to us. We will go at breakneck speed. I don't want to give any looking numbers, but we are clearly running at breakneck speed to reduce leverage. Various opportunities, as I said, the 700 crore liquidation, which has not yet reflected in the cash flows. There is more from the other non-operating assets, the new capacity which will come up, the 1.2 million ton, will start generating cash flows from day one. The 2.3 million ton, which was part of the JP deal, by the way, which we consciously bought as a unit stuck in NGT. That's 2.3 million tons of clinker sitting in the hotbed of the market, which is Eastern UP. It will start generating big amount of cash flows.
True.
So we will run towards 1x or lower very fast.
Just last, if I can press one more. We saw you, and that's purely on our channel indication. We saw in MP you really growing very high in Madhya Pradesh. I understand because of Bara as well, which got commissioned and all. It's more of market share gain, which you grew very fast. I mean, what we get from a channel, you're growing almost 30-40% in that market in June, maybe higher than that. Is it more of market share gain, or is it more of increasing dealer and distributor, which is getting more volumes in? If you bet not to answer it, but I just thought I'll try.
It's from a low base. We were not present in Madhya Pradesh at all because we were supplying from Vikram Cement, which is more closer to north. So we were not a central player for a very long time, and it's only after JP acquisition we have got JP and Century. Both acquisitions have added to our capacity. And yes, dealer addition, dealer network creation is an important element of any B2B play. And I alluded to a number of 95,000 channel partners, which is all India, which is no mean achievement.
Got it. Thank you very much and all the best. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Gaurav Rateria from Morgan Stanley. Please go ahead.
Hey, great execution, sir. Thanks for taking my questions. So 2 questions. Firstly, what would be the like-for-like...
Sorry, Gaurav, we have lost you.
I lost you.
Gaurav, you're not audible, Gaurav. So it seems there is no response from the line of Gaurav. We will move to the next. Yeah, we will move to the next question. That is from the line of Gunjan Prithyani from JP Morgan. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking my question. Really commendable delivery, sir. I had a question specifically on the cost side, and I don't note that in the presentation you've marked out 10% reduction on the overhead side. Now, when I look at the expenses on the other expenses, it's been a very material reduction. There's definitely a combination of some deferment of OPEX, like ad spend, which wouldn't have been high in this quarter, and some of the cost program that you're working on. Is it possible for you to give us some sense in terms of absolute savings that we are targeting and what we've achieved on that overhead cost control program?
We've achieved a 21% reduction in this quarter over last year on fixed overheads. which was something around 989 crores, if I remember it right, as compared to 1231 crores same period last year. Now, deferment, advertisement is not necessarily a deferment, but yeah, it was not required.
Yes.
So we did not curtail any expense. Travel, for example, is not a deferment. It was just forced. So today, when we have achieved a 20% or 21% reduction, I'm sure that we will continue to maintain a minimum of 10%. Other expenditures, which include various elements which are variable in nature, like packing costs is part of my other expenses. Selling overheads and consumables is also part of other expenses. So they are, with volumes down, they are naturally going to go down, and that's why I'm not going to replicate 20-21% over reduction in the future quarters, but the reduction plan that we have put in place for a sustainable longer term, minimum 10% is guaranteed.
Which would be almost about, going by the number 1,200 crores a quarter, kind of a fixed expense. It can be close to about 120 odd crores a quarter. It includes staff costs, just clarification on that.
So 1231, full year numbers you need to see instead of 1 year numbers. And I think last year our full year overheads were close to 5,000 crores. Nilesh, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so close to 5,000 crores. I would do a shave-off of minimum 500 crores on an annual basis.
Okay, got it. That's great. And on the cost side, the other question was on the variable. Now, when I look at the comments on the power and fuel, I sense that directionally you're not expecting very meaningful savings on that cost item. And on the freight side as well, given where we are, where the diesel price has been moving, are there any significant savings that you're expecting there? Anything from the M&A or logistic optimization?
Optimization will continue because when capacity utilization goes up, we will get the benefit of logistics optimization. And as I mentioned, our green power investment, which today has reached 14%, that must be costing maybe 15 or less than 20% of the current cost of power. That green power contribution, because of the investment in WHRS and solar, will go up to about 22 to 23%. So that will help us reduce the fuel cost. Added to that, there is a continuous effort on reducing the per ton consumption of power and fuel consumption of cement. Now, as we move forward, the incremental reduction is not in big chunks, but smaller units, smaller denomination. But those are the efforts which will lead to a sustainable reduction in costs.
Okay, got it. But lastly, if I can just put one question on the transaction which you mentioned, which has been concluded in last quarter. Are there any outstanding liabilities to meet, or it's the net cash flow that comes to UltraTech, that $120 million?
So 120 was the EV. That would make it 900 crores. We have to pay withholding tax in China, and that asset had a local loan also. Net of everything, after taxes, we should get 700 crores in India.
Got it. Thank you so much. I'll join back with you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Sumangal Nevatia from Kotak Securities. Please go ahead.
Good evening, Mr. Daga. So a couple of questions. Firstly, quick clarification. So the 500 crore cost reduction which we are aiming from the overhead cost, roughly. So that's one should expect that to be achieved in FY21, or it's over a 1 to 2 years kind of?
FY21.
Okay. Got it. So second, with respect to the 700 crore which you just mentioned is what we get in India. So this is net of the loan which is there against that asset, or is it just net of withholding tax, etc.?
No. Net of everything. 700 cash in India.
Okay. So then it looked like overall when we were talking about 1,000 crores from divestment, it's only 700 crore from one asset itself. So it looks like we've, crossed our overall expectation in terms of divestment revenue, right?
No, this has yielded me 700 does not necessarily mean that I will get, I'm not very hopeful on how much I can get from Dubai. And I'm still working on, it's been a long time already, still not been able to crack a deal on the European loans. So we will, I'm sure we will cross 1,000 crore number for sure. There are 2 more assets to go, and
okay,
we will cross that number.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So second question with respect to the work, overall maintenance capex. Now this year the guidance is around 1,000 crores, but we also have growth capex with respect to the grinding units, WHRS, and something with respect to the coal block.
Guidance is 1,500 crores, not 1,000. That is one. With this 1,500 crore, obviously includes my balance spent on the 1.2 million. Bicharpur is coming to a close, should get commissioned in March 21. 1.2 billion expansion, also a lot of spending had already happened, so we have bulk of that, and WHRS. So modernization capital requirement is 700, 800, give or take, not more than that.
Okay, and this run rate is, this is a normalized run rate given the vintage of our plants. So without any growth capex, 700-800 per year is what we should build in future. On a current capacity, 750 to 800 is a reasonable modernization or maintenance capex because we spend on a regular basis, so that's fine. Okay, got it. Thanks and all the best, sir. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before we take the next question, we would like to remind our participants to limit their question to 2 per participant. If time permits, you may join the question queue for any follow-up. The next question is from the line of Gaurav Rateria from Morgan Stanley. Please go ahead.
Hey, thank you for taking my question. Am I audible, sir?
Yes, you are now.
How clear?
Sir, just a question on the retail volume on a like-for-like. For the period you were operational during the quarter, what would have been the growth compared to the same period last year? Because we can't compare the whole quarter. 1 month was completely locked down, so it doesn't make sense to compare the on a quarter-on-quarter for last year.
You're right. Effectively we had 68 days of operation, and then 23rd April permissions started coming in. They were also, full of controversies that they would put management team behind bars if there was a COVID case in any of the plants. So we did not start the plants ASAP. I have not computed the number of 60 days of sale of same period last year. And obviously, if you were to do that, it's a classic case of correcting the base. Right now, you are using a 90-day base and comparing a 60-day performance, which is showing a 22% degrowth. And if you were to correct that, the numbers will look more rosier. The other way to give you some perspective, while the average capacity utilization for the quarter was 46%. Nilesh, correct? Ankit, 46%?
Yeah, 46%.
Yeah. So, I was looking at these 60 odd days of capacity utilization. The capacity utilization was upwards of 70% for those 2 months alone.
Okay.
Other than that, I haven't computed the data for last year 2 months.
No, sir, actually I was specifically asking this for the retail volume just to understand how much of the retail can actually offset any weakness in the institutional demand during the current year. But that's fine. I mean, I'm good for the answer. Just other question on the other expenses, sir. The overall overhead reduction is 500 crore. This is something which one should build for on a sustainable basis going forward beyond FY21 also?
Yes, please.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
On a current capacity, 500 crores. If the capacity grows, then obviously expenses will have to grow.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Ritesh Shah from Investec. Please go ahead.
Thanks for the opportunity. So my first question is, if you could provide some detail on this 157 crore of exceptional, for what asset was this and for what duration was that?
It was for Kotputli expansion and Aditya Cement Line 3 expansion. We had got the incentive I don't know whether I spoke in my commentary in detail. The incentive at that point in time was 75% of VAT in case the investment size, ticket size is more than 100 crores. Clearly, the investment on the brownfield expansion and the greenfield Kotputli was way higher than 100 crores, and that's why there was a special committee in Rajasthan which approved the 75% incentive for these two projects. VAT incentive of 75%. The incentive was exhausted, I think, by 2012, because both the units were doing very well, continue to do very well. The incentive was exhausted by 2012. And now in 2019, the state government said, no, you should have taken only 50% for whatever their analysis. I don't want to, I know what happened, but long story short, they ruled that 75% they gave by oversight and it should be restricted to 50%. We challenged the matter in High Court, lost, went to Supreme Court. Supreme Court ruled in their favor. But the only saving grace is that they reduced the interest rate to 12%. I hope that answers.
That's useful, sir. So my second question is on pricing and discounts. I think I've done a wonderful job on the cost side. But specifically, if one looks at the pricing head, what should one make of this? Looking at pricing and discounts both in tandem. So other managements which have come on the calls, basically what we hear is there will be a reduction in price differential between the invoice price and the selling price. They are also talking about stricter working capital when it comes to dealers, more of cash and carry. So some commentary on that side would be quite useful.
No, what's the question then? I don't understand the question.
So the question is regarding discounts, basically the differential, which is a practice which is in the market. I think a few companies which have already reported, they have indicated that this is something which is a good lever and we are playing on it, and it actually helps margins. And secondly, the terms which the companies have with the dealers, it's now more on cash and carry, and there are no more freebies which are there at the dealer level. So, sir, if one looks at the results overall, we have done a wonderful job on the cost side. But honestly, I was expecting something.
And we have done an excellent job on sales price also, which you're not recognizing anyway.
Right. So
what happened? No, I actually haven't understood your question, but what is this rate difference? What happens is we cannot keep on changing the price on a daily basis, the invoice that is getting generated. So the market practice is you will issue an invoice at X per bag, and if the dealer is not able to sell in the retail market X plus his margin, then the dealer gets compensated with that rate difference. That is what is called the rate difference discount.
Right.
Of course, there's a huge amount of verification, you show there's books, etc., etc. might be making some extra money also, can't rule that out. But this is prevalent maximum in southern markets.
Okay.
Northern markets virtually stopped it. West, once in a while it happens when East doesn't have it. I think it's predominant in South only.
Okay. So probably I'll give you a call offline for this. I wanted some more details. I'll take it off. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Naveen Sahadev from Edelweiss. Please go ahead.
Hello. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Hello. Yeah. Thank you. And thank you for the opportunity. So, Atul sir, the last time when we spoke on the call, I think sometime in May, after your Q4 results, you had mentioned around the call time that the capacity utilization for Ultratech stood around 65% with East operating at a much higher level of 85-90%. So if you can I just request a similar commentary of the current status as to how do you see your capacity utilization for the company, let's say July or as we speak, and then some color on the region-wise utilization, please.
Naveen, I think talking about capacity utilization for a 2-month period and spreading it on a 3-month period, that itself is a fallacy. Second, we have an average of 46% capacity utilization for the full period. The low would be maybe 40% and the high would be about 70%, ranging from market to market. Obviously, high 70% would be the eastern markets. This is on a 90-day. But if I were to look at on a 68 days or 65 days of operations, the overall numbers will jump up. I don't know how you want to
Okay, let me put it simply this way. June would have been or maybe July as we speak, what could be the capacity utilization, so to say, because Q2 last year was 64% or around that level. So if
right now as of today is running pretty well, and I would imagine it is between 60 and 65% already for the month of July. But don't multiply it by 3 or average it to 3, because we don't know how August, the remaining 2 days of July and August and September will pan out.
Yeah, sure. That's clearly dynamic, and I'm not getting into that. That's anybody's guess, and I'm not even trying to guess it. So thank you for this. Second, sir, if I may just ask, how has been the utilizations at Century Textiles? Are they similar to what we have done at a company level, which is around 46-47%, or are they materially different?
Yeah. So the eastern plant would have gone higher. The western plant would have done bad. Now, for us, it is becoming very difficult, especially in the Century acquisition as compared to the JP acquisition, because each plant was a standalone, in that geography which we entered. Let me again give details on the Century acquisition. The Manikgarh plant is within 20 kilometers of our existing Awarpur plant. Maihar plant has 2 other plants within 40-50 kilometers, which is Bela and Siddhi. The Chhattisgarh Vaikunth plant is also close to 2 other plants that we have. It's only a Sonar Bangla plant, which is the grinding unit, which is standalone by itself. So what happens is, my customer is the same. Our objective is to deliver same quality of cement from any plant. The moment I have achieved a quality equilibrium, the individual plants lose their sanctity. I hope I'm able to explain this. So my customer, an L&T which is doing the Mumbai-Nagpur Expressway, the Samruddhi Expressway, both the plants are supplying. Wherever I have material, it's supplying that. So it is very difficult to segregate between them. And hence, I think now we are operating optimally on a regional basis. If my east is operating at 70% or 80%, all my plants will operate at the same level. Does that explain?
What is the revenue from the white segment and RMC business in the quarter?
RMC business was about 148 crores and
white 250 crores.
White was 250 crores.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Indrajit Agarwal from CLSA. Please go ahead.
Hi, sir. Thank you for the opportunity. I just have one question. Can you give us the blended cement ratio percentage in this quarter?
I'm sorry?
The blended cement percentage.
Blended 78% or...
So just to understand...
Mukesh, Nilesh, can you give an exact
78%.
78%. Oh, it's correct, 78%.
Sure. So we had been at about 68% last year. So once the trade sales or the non-trade or the institutional sales come back, it will have some impact on the raw material cost as well as the blending goes down. Is that the correct understanding?
Yes, absolutely right.
Sure. Thank you. That's all from me.
Okay.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Kamlesh Jain from Prabhudas Lilladher. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity, sir, and congratulations on good set of numbers. Sir, just one question on the capex side. I know that given the performance we have, we can have the, excuse for that as well. So, but last quarter we were having a capex guidance of around 1,000 crore. So this quarter we have increased it to 1,500 crore. Is it only because of the project capex guidance in the last quarter, or
yes.
The guidance has increased?
Yeah, so our pessimism has reduced. In the beginning of April, we were looking at a very grim future. We are now wanting to expedite so we have increased our cash flow requirements on return-based capex, which we were going to do in any case, and like a WHRS. And as I mentioned, 66 megawatts of WHRS work has started, and that's why we have increased certain more, fast tracking on some capex. Not going full blast, but fast tracking on some capex.
Okay. And sir, how much potential do we have for this WHRS? Because some of the peers, I know you would be very well able to gauge that, are having 40% as like a 40% share of WHRS. So are we looking at the same level of share as well from current levels?
We have reached about 15%. My guess is after the current phase of expansion, we will go up to about 20%. I'm not very sure. I'll ask Mukesh or Nilesh to confirm.
20%. More than 20%.
Somewhere around 20%. We will then examine. See, the advantage some players, I know you're referring to Shree Cement, the advantage that they have, and they have done an incredible job also about it, no doubts. A single location where they could plan very well. And we are looking at a place like Rajashree Cement, which has 4 lines. The single location, 6.5 million ton capacity. So you have to do the rigmarole of identifying space where to put additional WHRS capacity, because there's a large turbine and a boiler which has to be put in place. And we will keep on adding till the technical team feels that there is no more juice left to put up WHRS. I don't have an end game number in plan or the end game opportunity that exists, but there is still room to expand our WHRS network on a current capacity.
Thank you. Mr. Jain would request you to join the question queue for any follow-up. The next question is from the line of Rashi Chopra from Citigroup. Please go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to check where does the India demand growth or demand decline for the quarter stand in context of your 22% organic decline? That was one question.
I didn't get the question. Decline as in?
As in India, all India volumes. I'm just trying to understand where you stand in respect of the all India volumes for the first quarter. Like you have a 22% decline if I exclude Century. So what is all India? I mean the industry data. In your view.
Industry data.
Yeah.
So we are looking at industry doing about 33 or 35% decline this quarter.
Okay. And this, you explained a bit of this in some of the prior questions, but essentially when we look at the 30-35% decline in India right now, or if you want to talk about UltraTech specifically, if anecdotally we had to kind of ascribe some percentages to the end use segment, so or just maybe I'll ask more straightforward, like the low cost housing data or the IHP, what is the rate of decline there? So just trying to figure out like what segments are likely to see some sort of recovery and how we can extrapolate that to the second half.
So IHP, is growing today. And when we talk about IHB, we talk about retail demand, which is smaller towns. There is no IHB in Mumbai. Okay. So in my hypothesis, the housing demand is give or take 50%, excluding the tier 1 towns, which is another 10%. So 60% is the total housing demand, and that 50% demand, in that 50% demand, 35% is rural demand. Rural demand, we internally, and this is our internal definition, we classify any town with a population of less than 30,000 people as a rural town. Those markets are growing. And you won't believe, but Central India has grown for us this quarter over the same period last year, in spite of doing only 60 days of or whatever, 65 days of operations in this quarter. So the base is not correct, but on that base also we have grown. Central India is a rural market, and it's not an institutional market. It's an IHB market, the MP UP market. Going forward, I'm giving you all kinds of analogies and explanations, and I think you will be able to derive a conclusion. As I mentioned, Odisha. Now, Odisha, we are seeing a big spending coming up. Government support is happening. It is not on their government program of low-income housing, but it is because of that typhoon which had hit. There's a huge amount of rehab work which is going on. Bengal, the moment they lift lockdown and they get the situation under control, they are going all out for development. There will be an institutional spend happening till elections. I think the elections are just a few months away, if I don't remember the exact period, but 5-6 months away if I'm right. You'll have huge amount of spending happening in Bengal. These are the two big chunks in the eastern markets. West, unfortunately, continues to struggle. West, whatever demand we are seeing, let's say a 40% or 42% capacity utilization that we are seeing in the western markets, is largely institutional or largely government spending on the big projects. Metro, you will see still some work happening in Mumbai, wherever they have sites open. The road project is still happening. So institutional demand is going up, continuing. Now, the base is so volatile that the percentages will look totally different. If my overall all India demand basket shrinks and IHB continues to grow, then IHB will occupy a higher share this year. Does that answer a bit?
Yeah. So just to, if I've understood this right, so IHB is roughly about 35% of India's demand, and that you're saying is up on a year-on-year basis. Whole India demand on the whole is down about 30-35%. Is that okay to, like, a fair summary?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Rajesh Lachani from HSBC. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. So just, two questions from my side. One, earlier during the call, I heard that in July the realizations are down by 4 to 5%. Can you please confirm that? That would be question number one.
Yeah, confirm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And secondly, Atul, we have also seen employee cost decline during this quarter. Even quarter on quarter, we have seen a 14% employee cost decline. So just wanted to understand how much of this is sustainable and how much would reverse in Q2 and going forward.
It is sustainable.
Okay, so these are sustainable. Okay. That's it from my side, sir.
Thank you.
Okay.
The next question is from the line of Pulkit Patni from Goldman Sachs. Please go ahead.
So thanks a lot for taking my question. Basically, if I understand correctly, it is obviously, the trade segment that has actually driven the demand. Now, what I'm unable to understand, why this apprehension about strong growth continuing, because project work will only get better from where it is. So far, if projects are operating at 50%, they will only get to 60 or 70%. And given the monsoon and as you said that, rural crop has been good, that momentum should also continue. So what I'm unable to relate to is that why should there be an apprehension in terms of, positivity on demand? Because whatever has happened in terms of a month-long lockdown across the country is probably the worst. Even if there are pockets of the country which see sporadic lockdowns, why should the momentum not stay positive? Is your concern that, project work, etc., could not begin for a long time, or new project awards could not happen? Because it seems the worst is over. From here, why should there not be a positive momentum is what I'm trying to understand.
Pulkit, I am very positive. We have increased our capex by 500 crores. We are going ahead with our capacity expansion plans. So the only uncertainty which we are worried about, now take a classic example of Kolkata lockdown. I was just alluding to the pre-election spending, which everybody is aware of what happens. Government hands are tied. They can't move an inch. What happens is, if I have an RMC plant sitting out there, can't bring raw material in, can't move trucks to the site, don't keep casual labor with you, you disband the casual labor, and to mobilize all resources again takes time. You mobilize, demobilize again. This is the uncertainty which we are struggling with. Otherwise, and in last quarter, I think I had already mentioned that this financial year could be the best ever in terms of profitability for cement industry. Volumes, we are in the current pandemic times, the month of July, we are doing 60 to 65% capacity utilization. The month is already coming to an end, so this is under the belt. Monsoon is doing pretty well in the country. Generally, everywhere we are seeing wet spells or floods also for that matter. In that scenario, if July we have done 65%, there's no reason why we cannot keep on the same momentum. And if that happens, well, it's payback time. I hope you read that message. It's a deep message they have given.
Fair point. And state finances also do not worry you in a big way.
No, not at all. We can have a offline discussion, and I've heard this. I don't have my own sources, but I've heard this from prominent economists and bankers, where is the government cash surplus, cash pool lying? The huge amount of cash available in the country. Don't worry about it.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Saurabh Duggar from HDFC. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi sir. Good evening. This is Rajesh from HDFC. Sir, on two things. First, on the Pali expansion, what is the status on that project, sir? North Pali expansion?
Pali, we will start work in the next financial year positively. So that project is going on stream for sure. Because to be candid, we have mines. We have to commission it, otherwise we lose the mines in December 22. So we will start work on it next financial year.
Okay, so by 22 end, do you expect that to be commissioned, or it may extend into 23, FY23?
No, it's in FY23, no? October, December 22.
Sorry, okay. 23.
That's 23, yeah. Calendar 23, commissioned by October, December 22.
Okay. And sir, on the volume front, when you say that like-to-like 23% volume decline, would you please explain how that works? Because I would assume that the Century last year, when it from the record date when you are taking the merger impact, you would have taken only proportionate volumes of Century in the reported numbers that we have.
From 20th May 2018, no, April, the like-for-like period is April, June 19. So that has full 90 days volume. But this quarter you have only 60 days of volume. That's another dimension. See, any acquisition that takes place. In the case of Binani Cement that we acquired Binani Cement in November 2018. Right. And when we reported out, when you analyzed our performance for October, December 18, there was no impact of Binani that you calculated for October, December 17 in the base. Any acquisition that takes place, any inorganic, not just cement, anywhere, when a capacity addition takes place, you start counting the benefits from that period. Why will you debit or credit me for the performance of the previous management and the previous team? That doesn't happen.
Thank you, Mr. Duggar. Request you to join the question queue for any follow-up. We'll take the next question. That is from the line of Amit Murarka from Motilal Oswal. Please go ahead.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Daga. My question is on cost. What I understand is the cost reduction has been quite phenomenal. But some of the spends like repairs, which you have curtailed this quarter, by when can this come back? Because I believe now we are in the maintenance season anyways. So can we expect normalization of the repairs and maintenance cost in this quarter? And secondly, on the power and fuel side, if I gathered it correctly, you mentioned that the power and fuel costs will not fall further from 1Q FY21 levels. While my understanding has been that the low point in petcoke was about $60, and the last quarter average for us was $70. So shouldn't there be some follow-through benefits of that $60 petcoke into 2Q?
It could be there, but if you look at the quarter, because current purchases which are happening for $75 also will hit the next quarter, and bulk weightage of 70-75 will be higher. It's too early to say unless prices suddenly crash, but as of now the prices are stable around $75 as compared to a low of $55 or $60. The other thing that happens in the petcoke prices, this is a landed price. Okay. Ocean freight is a very high component. At times it becomes 50% also. Currently I think it is, Mukesh, it's around 50%? Ocean freight?
Ocean freight is 50% around.
Yeah, so the FOB price might still be $35, but ocean freight when April ocean freight had fallen dramatically because there was no movement. Now ocean freight is picking up. They are jacking up the price, the freight rates also.
In fact, there was a hardly transaction happening between the 55 to 60. It was a rate only.
Yeah.
But there are hardly buyer available in the market.
Yeah.
Okay. And
seems to be seen, $70 becoming $60, which is $10, might impact $50, or 70 becomes 75. So it's a swing of, let's say, 50 rupees a ton either ways, either side.
Okay. And also, this quarter was also kind of hampered by the lower kiln run rates or the utilization rates, which would have hampered efficiency. Could you quantify what could be that impact? Or let's say, was it 2 to 3% additional energy consumption because of that?
Yes, I think we have mentioned it in the presentation also that what is called a frequent start-stop causes a higher consumption, but I don't have a separate number for that. Maybe, Ankit and Nilesh can give it to you offline. We have to work it out. We haven't worked out the number.
Okay, and then the repairs and maintenance, that would largely normalize this quarter, right?
Amit, important point to note is that power consumption per ton of cement, which we had put down in the presentation, is down only, if I remember it right. I'm trying to...
It is down only.
Yeah, it is down. So, it's not mentioned here, but power consumption per ton of cement is down as of now. Yeah. So there will be a benefit in case the plants run smoothly.
So in fact, Goa it is slightly down, but if you compare to Q4, it is higher because of the interruption in the...
Okay.
Yeah, so could you quantify what will be the impact of that interruption, just to get the context?
So, Nilesh, between Q4 and Q1, how much higher power consumption?
About 1.5 units.
1.5 units.
1 unit costs less than around 5 rupees a unit into 75.
So 5 rupees per ton may be the cost.
Yeah.
Thank you.